Welcome, everybody. My name is Robin Beliveau. I am the Outreach and Training Specialist here at the Brunswick County Board of Elections. With me tonight is Sarah Levere. She is our Elections Director. I also have Kat Newland, our Registration Clerk, and Ryan Childress, our Logistics Specialist. He's handling our AV tonight. Everyone on the webinar is muted. At the bottom of your screen is a Q&A box. Feel free to type in your questions at any time during this presentation. We take questions at the end, but if you have something on your mind, type it in so you don't forget about it, and we'll make sure to address that at the end of the seminar. So I do want to thank everybody for joining us. This is our second seminar in our election education series. Tonight, we're going to be talking about voter registration. So let's go over the topics for tonight. We're going to be covering new voter registration, which is how new voters can register online, by mail, or in person. We're going to talk about current voters and how they can update or make changes to their registration. What do you do with those voter registration cards when you receive them? And our youth pre-registration options, the age at which teens can pre-register and the process that they go through to get registered. We'll talk about residency, in-county moves, in-state and out-of-state moves. And we're going to talk about the voter rolls. We're going to take a deep dive into how we keep the voter rolls clean, talk about incomplete registrations, what it means to be inactive versus removed, denied, deceased voters, and the NCOA, which is our National Change of Address Program. So U.S. citizens who are 18 or older and live in Brunswick County can register to vote. And there are several ways to register. A voter can register at the DMV in person, whether they are obtaining a North Carolina license for the first time or using the DMV for other services. Per federal statute, the DMV is required to take applications for voter registration, whether you have another reason to go to the DMV or not. If you're an existing customer with a North Carolina license or North Carolina issued ID card, you can submit a registration application online through the DMV portal. You can obtain a printed voter registration form at our office, or you can download it from the North Carolina State Board of Elections website or the Brunswick County Board of Elections website. This form can be dropped off or mailed to our office. Printed forms may also be provided at voter registration drives or various agencies such as libraries, high schools, and public assistance agencies. Now let's talk about the printed form. If you print the form from our website or the state's website, there are 3 pages to the form, but only one that the voter needs to complete. Fields in red on the form are required, but you will want to make sure to include other information that is not in red, such as your North Carolina driver's license number or the last 4 of your social security number and your party affiliation. We recommend you include the address you were previously registered with. Demographic information such as gender, race, and ethnicity are optional. Application instructions and the mailing addresses for each North Carolina county will accompany the voter registration form if you downloaded and printed it from online. Follow the instructions which will guide you to completing each section of the form. Then you can find which office to mail your form to based on what county you reside in. So let's review the form. Section 1 is required and asks if you are qualified to vote based on citizenship and age. This entire section needs to be completed. There are 3 questions. The first asking if you are a citizen. And the second 2 questions are regarding age to confirm you are either of age to vote or at least 16. Section 2 asks the voter to provide their name. Voters should provide their full legal name. Whatever information you put in the fields in red will be how your name is registered in the rolls. When voters check in to vote, they are required by law to state their name and their address. If you write your full name on the form and give a nickname when you check in, it may take a little longer to find you in the voter rolls. Section 3 requires the voter's date of birth. We recommend voters complete the boxes that ask for North Carolina driver's license number and the last 4 of their social security number. If you do not include your North Carolina driver's license number or last 4 of your social security number as a first-time registrant, then you will be flagged as an ID required voter the first time that you present to vote, whether at early voting or on election day. This means you will need to show an acceptable form of ID before voting. This is only required the first time you present to vote, and again, only if you neglected to put your North Carolina license number or last 4 of your social on the form. If a voter leaves this form blank, they will receive a card in the mail requesting they provide the information prior to the election. This would eliminate the need for them to be ID required. Section 4 is asking for the voter's physical address. This cannot be a PO box, but must be where the voter physically lives. Section 5 gives the voter the opportunity to provide a mailing address if they prefer to receive correspondence somewhere other than their residential address. There is a checkbox that must be completed that will inform our office about what address to use. This section is only required if you have a mailing address. As we continue on the form, I want to note that there is a section if a voter does not have a physical address. Section 6 is for demographic information. This is optional information about gender, ethnicity, and race. Voters are not required to complete this section, but the information can be helpful when providing data on voter turnout. Section 7 is where the voter will choose which of the North Carolina recognized political parties they wish to be affiliated with. If the voter does not select one of the recognized political parties in North Carolina on the form, then they will be registered as unaffiliated. This has no effect on who they vote for in a municipal or general election. In a primary, they would choose which party's ballot they want to vote on, while those affiliated with a party are required to vote on the ballot of their party of record. While Section 8 is not required, we recommend that you complete previous address information, as this will help facilitate removal of your previous registration. I will talk about the ways voters do get removed later in this presentation, regardless of whether they complete this part of the form. If you are interested in learning more about being a poll worker, then we recommend that you put your contact information on the form in Section 9, particularly your email address, as that is how we communicate with the several hundred poll workers that train and work with us each election. Voters should note if they include a phone number, it becomes public record on their voter registration along with their name, address, and party affiliation. Finally, the voter needs to sign in Section 10, attesting the form has been completed truthfully. Forms must be signed and dated in order for the voter to become registered. This is what a completed form would look like. If you picked up a form from our office, at the bottom, there is adhesive. Once the liner has been removed, this will allow the application to be folded and sealed. If the form was printed online, the voter should put the form in an envelope. If mailing the form, voters should put their address, their return address on the envelope and make sure to include postage. Once the voter registration has been entered into the statewide election information management system, the voter will receive their registration card. The document comes folded and taped on 3 sides. The outside will have the mailing address of the voter on one side and the voter's registration information, including voting place and election districts, on the other. The inside provides some basic information and instructions on the back of the mailing address side, and on back of the registration card, is the Board of Elections mailing address if the card needs to be returned with changes. Registered voters who need to make changes can use the same methods as new voters. Changes can also be made on your voter registration card. They can go to the DMV in person or use the online portal if they have a valid North Carolina driver's license or North Carolina issued ID card. Registered voters can also download and print the voter registration form or receive a copy from a registration drive, public service agency, or our office. This can be mailed to our office or dropped off in person. Changes to voter registration can also be submitted electronically via fax or email. Lastly, you can use your voter registration card to make changes and drop it off or mail it back to our office. Now, we recommend that all registered voters check their registration at least 5 weeks prior to an election due to various deadlines required by law. By checking before each election, a voter can head off any problems that might come up when they present to vote, such as a new polling location or removed status. Voters are required to live in the county they are voting in for at least 30 days prior to an election. The registration deadline for new or previously removed voters is always 25 days prior to the election. This is also the deadline for changes to voter information, including political party. The North Carolina Voter Lookup tool can be found on our website and the North Carolina State Board of Elections website. Here's the web address. When you input this URL or click on the link on our website, this is the page you will come to. Voters are required to input their first and last name as well as their voter status. Voters should check off registered. Additional information is optional, but can help narrow the search. The voter should click the search button at the bottom once information has been input. Now, if the voter does not find their name in the search, they can research by checking off removed or denied. There are several reasons a voter might be removed, which I will discuss later. If the voter cannot find themselves through voter lookup, then they may need to re-register. We recommend voters contact our office if the lookup tool yields no results. If voters are checking 5 weeks prior to an election, they have time to make updates or get registered if it turns out they are not a current registered voter. The next page that will appear will show a list of all the voters with that name. The voter should click on the name in blue that corresponds to them. This will open the voter's registration and provide the voter with their current registration information, including name and address, voter details such as status, party, demographics, and registration date, and jurisdiction information such as precinct, Congress, state and House districts, and municipality. As the voter scrolls down the page, the voter will see additional information such as polling precinct, sample ballot for the upcoming election, and voter history if they were a previous voter. Now that you know how to check your registration, let's look at the different methods for making updates if changes are required. The same voter registration application used for new voters is also used to make changes. Fields in red are required, even if some of those things are not changing. Make sure to sign and date the form before returning it. As a reminder, changes of information may be returned by mail, in person, or electronically. Now, voters can go to the North Carolina Department of Motor Vehicles site online to make changes to their registration, provided they have a North Carolina license or state-issued ID card. Here's the link, though a search for NCDMV will also bring up their main site, and then voters can click on Offices-Services and Online to continue. This link will bring you directly to the online services page seen here. To access the voter registration information, voters should click on the appropriate link. Once the link is clicked, the next page will appear and voters should click Get Started. This will open up a new page that welcomes users to My NC DMV. Click on the blue button to continue. This will take you to a login page. If you don't have a login, you can continue as a guest. But as a reminder, you will need to have a North Carolina driver's license or North Carolina state issued ID card to proceed in the portal after logging in. If you have logged in, you will see a screen that has your DMV information. If you log in as a guest, this information will be blank. Scroll down and click on the link to Submit a Voter Registration Application. A chat box will open, which will start the process of registering or making updates. The first message asks you to enter your North Carolina driver's license number or state issued ID number, your social security number, and date of birth. Click Submit to continue. The second message states that if you do not have the required information to put in the lookup below, then you can click to download the voter registration application. If you do have the required information, once you click Submit, the chat box will continue asking if you are currently registered. You will need to type your response, yes or no, and the chat will continue with next steps. As I have typed yes, the chat reminds me that I am unable to change my name online, but can do so by downloading and resubmitting the voter application. The next text in the chat asks if I want to update my address or party information, and that by choosing yes, it will replace existing voter registration information. You will need to click on the yes or no button to respond. Continue to follow the prompts in the chat box to make and confirm changes. You can always exit out before completion and no changes will be made. DMV records are delivered electronically to the appropriate Board of Elections daily. Now, just as when you registered for the first time, if you make any change to your registration, you will receive a new voter registration card in the mail with your updated information. We verify changes by mail. If we can't, then a voter becomes inactive. I will talk more about how we verify by mail and what inactive means later in the presentation. Now, make sure that you check your card thoroughly. It will state your name, address, mailing address if different, polling location, election districts, your party affiliation, and any demographic information you provided on your voter registration application. If the card has all the correct info, there is nothing that you need to do with your card other than tuck it away. If there are errors on the card to your name, address, party affiliation, or demographic information, then make the changes directly on the card in the space provided. Tear the card so you have a postcard instead of a full card, and make sure to provide a stamp and your return address before dropping it in the mail. You certainly can also bring it in person to our office. Now, in North Carolina, teens can pre-register to vote as early as 16 years of age. Teens who register at the DMV often do it when they get their license. The voter registration application can also be retrieved at the DMV, our office, public high schools, or downloaded from our website. Once completed, it should be mailed to our office or dropped off in person. The voter application has specific questions at the top about age. As long as the teen can answer yes to being 16 years of age, they can complete the application and pre-register to vote. Once a teen pre-registers, it triggers an automated confirmation process. The first is a confirmation letter of pre-registration. This will come in the mail to the teen and indicate they are pre-registered to vote. It explains that once they are eligible to vote, their actual voter registration will be processed automatically. It also provides contact information if there are any questions or changes that need to be made. Once the teen is eligible to vote, the system will automatically alert us to process the voter registration application. Once processed, we will print a voter registration card for that teen. The card will be mailed to the teen at the address that was on the voter registration application. Now, in an even numbered year, when both a primary and general election are held, a teen's application can be processed as early as 60 days prior to the date of any primary election associated with an upcoming general election, if the teen will be 18 years old by the general election date. A 17-year-old is permitted to vote in a primary if they will be 18 by the general election. This is because a primary does not vote someone into office. It determines who will be on the general election ballot for that political party. It can be thought of as a nomination process. Now, voters are required by law to live in the county where they are registering or are currently registered. By law, voters can only register in one place. They must live at their residence for at least 30 days prior to an election. This means if a voter moves after the residency deadline, they would not be eligible to vote in their new jurisdiction, but would still be eligible to vote in their jurisdiction, their prior jurisdiction of their previous address. As a reminder, voters can only register at one address. It should be their primary residence. If a voter lives in North Carolina and is moving within the state, they can update their registration through the DMV or the voter registration application. When they are moving within the same county, it is still important to update their registration, as it could change the offices they are eligible to vote on and or change their election day polling location. Voters can make that change on election day at the polls, but as it may result in a precinct change, we recommend voters update the prior to the residency deadline so that there is time for a new voter registration card with their updated polling location to be processed and mailed to the voter. When a North Carolina resident is moving from one county to another within the state or becomes a new North Carolina resident, the same options apply. Current North Carolina voters can make an update through the North Carolina DMV portal or with the voter registration application. New residents can submit their application when they get their North Carolina driver's license or their state issued ID with the voter registration application. Voters moving out of North Carolina should contact their local elections office to find out how they can register. Remember that if you are moving from one state to another, you should include your previous address on your voter registration. If you move out of Brunswick County, we have a voter cancellation form on our website that you can complete to remove yourself from our voter rolls. So let's talk about keeping the voter rolls clean. It's an ongoing process and it's fed from multiple resources. Each month, a duplicate report is run through the statewide election management system that flags possible duplicate registrations and can merge confirmed duplicates into one registration. A statewide duplicate check is done automatically when counties process a voter registration application. The applicant's information is checked first with the voter registration list within the county and then within the state. If the statewide voter registration system determines the applicant is registered in another county, then that voter is removed from the previous county of registration when the person is registered in the new county. A monthly duplicate check is done manually at each county board of elections office. The State Board of Elections provides County Board of Election offices with a monthly report comparing the county voter records with the statewide voter records in an attempt to identify potential duplicate registrations that were not caught with the statewide duplication check. This report is generated and made available to the counties electronically. County Board of Elections offices research these reports, and work with other Board of Elections offices to make a determination of whether an individual is registered in another county, and if so, in which county the voter needs to be removed and in which county the person is qualified to vote. In January and July of each year, the State Board of Elections provides each of the 100 county Board of Elections offices in North Carolina with change of address data from the United States Postal Service for voters in the county's respective voter registration lists. This is called the NCOA, or National Change of Address Program. The County Board of Elections offices are then tasked with sending these voters special confirmation mailings to confirm whether they have an unreported change of address for voting purposes. These mailings permit voters to update their name or address within a county or to notify the Board of Elections of a move outside of the county. To remove deceased voters from the rolls, the State Board of Elections receives a report every month from the Department of Health and Human Services, which includes reported deaths in the state. The list includes persons who died in North Carolina, as well as approximately 35 other states. The report does not include the deaths of North Carolina residents who died in South Carolina and Virginia, because the Department of Health and Human Services is not permitted to share information they receive from those states with third-party entities. County Board of Elections offices may not use a newspaper obituary, Facebook posting, unofficial death website or announcement, or any other non-government entity to remove a voter from the list of registered voters. A near relative can also complete a notification of deceased voter form, which can be found on our website under Forms. The form provides what constitutes a near relative. The form should be completed in full, signed, and mailed and returned or returned electronically or in person to our office. As I mentioned earlier, it is important for voters to check their registration at least 5 weeks prior to an election. When doing a voter registration lookup, if the voter is listed as active, there is nothing the voter needs to do unless there is information in the registration record that is incorrect. Then the voter should follow the steps I outlined previously on how to make updates to their voter registration. If a voter's registration lists them as inactive, this does not mean their registration has been removed. An inactive status indicates that the County Board of Elections has not been able to verify by mail the address in the voter's record. This verification involves cards being sent by first-class mail. The first mailing is a verification notice, which is sent to the mailing address of the voter by non-forwardable first-class mail. If that notice is not returned by the Postal Service as undeliverable, the voter's status remains active. If the verification notice is returned as undeliverable, an address confirmation notice is sent by forwardable first-class mail, either to the voter's prior mailing address or the forwarding address provided by the Postal Service. The confirmation notice includes a postage, prepaid return card, and requires a response from the voter. If the confirmation notice is returned by the Postal Service as undeliverable or is not returned at all within 30 days of the date the notice was sent, the County Board of Elections would consider the voter inactive. Early in every odd-numbered year, County Board of Elections do biennial list maintenance. When a County Board of Elections has had no contact with a voter for the previous 2 statewide general elections, and the voter has not voted during that time, the county board will send the voter a forwardable address confirmation mailing. The voter will be required to return the confirmation mailing within 30 days. If the voter does not return the mailing, or the U.S. Postal Service returns it to the county board as undeliverable, then the voter's record will be marked inactive in the state's voter registration database. During this same odd-numbered year, County Board of Election offices will remove certain inactive voters from the rolls. Voters will be removed from registration lists when they have been inactive for 2 statewide general elections. Inactive voters are still registered voters. If an inactive voter shows up to vote at early voting or on election day, the person will be asked to verify their address and update it if necessary. If their address puts them in a new polling location, they will be provided with the option of going to the correct location or voting provisional at the current precinct. I will talk more about provisional voting in our September election education seminar called Prepare to Vote. The following designations could affect the voter from being able to vote in an election. Voters who show up as removed need to re-register to be eligible to vote. There are a variety of reasons a voter would be removed. For example, a voter who has been convicted of a felony and is in prison or has served in prison is removed from the voter rolls and not eligible to vote. If a voter moved to another state and looked up their old registration, it could list them as removed. If an inactive voter has not voted in 2 sequential federal elections, they are automatically removed from the voter rolls. These voters can re-register to vote, but need to re-register by the registration deadline, which is always 25 days prior to an election. Voters who miss this deadline, however, can participate in same-day registration, which is offered at early voting, but they cannot register at a precinct on election day. Voters who plan to register using same-day registration during early voting must provide proof of residency at the time of registration. If they do not provide proof of residency, they will have the option to vote a provisional ballot and will need to provide proof of residency by 5 p.m. the day before canvass for their registration to be valid for that election. If they miss this deadline, the provisional application will be sufficient to register them for the next or the following election. This is another reason we encourage voters to check their voter registration prior to an election. A new voter's registration will be denied if the mail verification process fails. As I mentioned earlier, when a new voter registers, a voter registration card is generated and mailed to the voter via first-class mail. If the voter registration card is returned without a forwarding address, the voter registration card will be sent a second time. If that card is returned, we send the confirmation notice by first-class mail. The voter will be required to return the confirmation mailing within 30 days. If the voter does not return the mailing, or the U.S. Postal Service returns it to the county board as undeliverable, then the voter's record will be marked denied in the state's voter registration database. Now, if the voter registration card is returned to us with a forwarding address, we will send the card to the new address. But if it is also returned, a confirmation notice follows, and the voter will be required to return the confirmation mailing within 30 days. Again, if the voter does not return the mailing, or the U.S. Postal Service returns it to the County Board of Elections as undeliverable, then the voter's record will be marked denied in the state's voter registration database. The voter would then be required to re-register and could do so by the registration deadline or via same-day registration at early voting. Now, if a voter cannot find their registration in the voter lookup, their registration may be incomplete. The registration will sit in a queue in our database. This generates a letter to the voter with instructions on how to complete the registration. For example, if a voter forgets to sign the application, we can't process the registration as signature is required by law. The letter would provide an opportunity for the voter to fix the mistake. Once returned to our office and verification completes, the voter would become registered as active. This is why it is important for voters to pay attention to required information on the voter registration application. If a voter moves out of the county or state or wishes to withdraw their voter registration for any reason, they can complete a voter registration cancellation form. This document can also be found on our website under the Forms tab. It is important to note that only the voter should complete and sign this form. This form cannot be signed by power of attorney or a family member. As a reminder, voters are only permitted to have one voter registration. It is a felony to vote more than once in an election or to vote under more than one address. So I hope that everybody enjoyed tonight's seminars and that you learned something valuable about voter rolls and the voter registration process. Before we conclude, however, and open it up for questions, I would like to mention our upcoming events. So next month is our first annual Elections Expo on Thursday, May 18th, here in the Commissioner's Chambers at the Government Center. This will be an open house format from 1 to 3 p.m. and 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. There's no formal presentation and the public is welcome to come anytime during those 2-hour time slots and stay for as short or as long as they'd like. They'll have the opportunity to meet the Board of Elections team, become an informed voter, get registered if they haven't registered yet, learn how to make changes and understand some more how the voter rolls are updated. They can learn more about curbside voting, what a buffer zone is, and how that pertains to electioneers. They can request an absentee by mail ballot. They can learn how to complete the return envelope correctly. They can familiarize themselves with in-person voting processes, both at early voting and on election day. Even get hands-on experience with voting equipment, including the accessible voting machine and the ballot tabulator. And we'll also have, will have the opportunity to learn more about what a municipality is, which is the upcoming election, is our municipal election, so that our voters have a better understanding of what they're voting on this fall. We'll be hosting several other election education seminars that will provide a deeper dive into the following voter-specific topics. So in June, on Thursday the 15th, we're going to delve into accessible voting. So learning about the available options to voters with disabilities and voters who need or want assistance. Things like, what is voter assistance? Who can help you and how can they help you? What is curbside voting and who is okay to use it? We'll talk about the Verity Touch Writer, our ADA equipment that is used for visually impaired or maybe those with dexterity issues. One-stop early voting, what it is, when is it, and who can vote early. Absentee by mail, what is it and who can use it? And I'll also talk about MAT, our multi-partisan assistance team, what it is and who it can benefit. In July, on Wednesday the 12th, will be our absentee by mail deep dive, and this will offer the opportunity for attendees to learn the process of absentee by mail. So what is it? How can you request your absentee by mail ballot? Who can request an absentee by mail ballot? How to complete the ballot return envelope? How to return the completed ballot, including the additional required paperwork if someone's returning it in person? And how are the ballots processed at the Board of Elections? Wednesday, August 16th, we'll talk about our voting equipment and learn all about the equipment that's used in Brunswick County. We'll introduce you to the different types of equipment we used, what type of testing is done to ensure accuracy, and the security measures that are in place. And on Thursday, September 21st, we will be talking about preparing to vote, learning all the steps that you can take to ensure a smooth voting experience, confirming your registration, knowing your deadlines and important dates. What is same-day registration and how to participate in that? How to find your sample ballot or your assigned precinct. Provisional ballots, what are they and why are they important? And candidate and party promotion. What are you permitted to wear when you're voting? And dealing with electioneers. And lastly, on Thursday, December 7th, we'll talk about certifying an election and the whole process that goes behind that. What is Canvass? We'll talk about voter history, provisional ballots and how those are counted, and sample audit count. Now, I can't stress enough that poll workers are our democracy heroes. These election officials operate the polls and provide assistance to voters throughout our 27 precincts during early voting and on election day. We rely on hundreds of poll workers each election to maintain our voting sites. Poll worker orientations are no obligation sessions that provide interested community members the opportunity to learn the roles, responsibilities, and necessary requirements to be a poll worker in Brunswick County. I encourage you to join us for one of our 4 upcoming in-person sessions here in the Commissioner's Chambers beginning next month. I want to stress that these are for people who have not worked as a poll worker before in our county, or maybe worked as a poll worker more than 3 or 4 years ago, and this would be a great refresher for you. So those upcoming dates are Thursday, May 25th at 2 p.m., Wednesday, June 28th at 10 a.m., Wednesday, July 26th at 2 p.m., and Thursday, August 24th at 10 a.m. I do know we will have an online session sometime in August, and we'll send out that date as we get closer to that time. Again, those sessions are in person and will be here in the Commissioner's Chambers in the Government Center. Now, being a poll worker is a very rewarding experience. So I want to share some of the comments from a few of our poll worker specialists. I shared some in our last seminar. These 3 poll workers have all worked as specialists for us. They're poll workers who have previous experience and have done a wonderful job. All of our poll workers do a wonderful job. So Donna has been a poll worker since 2013, and she currently works as a ballot specialist. She says, I love being a poll worker because I enjoy knowing I am being a part of the process of assisting people on how to cast their vote safely and securely. Also, I like to learn new things, and each election is a new experience for me because there are various jobs that we can train for. It's something I look forward to each election year. Chuck is one of our machine techs and has been a poll worker since 2019. Chuck had this to say about working as a poll worker. I get the opportunity to work side by side with my neighbors and meet new people. I play a vital role in the democratic process. I have the chance to help people plus serve my community. As poll worker, you can choose your work schedule for early voting by selecting the days and the time of day you are available. I find the hands-on poll worker and specialty position trainings to be sufficient for the new volunteers. And Renee is a help desk specialist and has been a poll worker since 2018. She has a full-time job, but takes the time to assist us each election. And Renee says, I love being a poll worker because it is my way to give back and serve within my community and interact with others. I'm very fortunate to be entrusted to carry out my duties and make certain that eligible voters are able to participate fairly in our democratic process. So I want to thank everybody for coming, whether you are here in person or online. We appreciate your time today. I have put up a slide with our contact information, has our website and our social media handles. I encourage you to follow us on any of these sites that you use, because we're constantly working on expanding our social media presence to provide accurate and timely information to our community. Please tell your family, your friends, your neighbors to follow us as well. If you have questions at any time after this meeting, if you go to our website, you can complete the submission form that is on our homepage, and we can get any questions answered to you. So at this time, I'm going to open up the floor for any questions from our audience here, and then we'll take any questions that we have online. Yes.
When a new voter is filling out the voter registration form and lists either his North Carolina driver's license number or the last 4 digits of social security number, how are those 2 bits of information used to verify the other information that is on the voter registration form?
The number, your SS number. Can you repeat it for people online?
Yes. So the question from our audience member, Lloyd, was on the voter registration form in the area where the voter is required to put their driver's license number. or the last four of their social security number. How is that information used in the verification process? Is that correct, Lloyd? All right, I'm going to have Kat, our registration clerk, answer this question.
The social security number or the last four digits and your driver's license number are connected to the DMV. So it's researched in there. That's how it's verified through the Department of Motor Vehicles.
So the Board of Elections has access to the DMV database. So,
The State Board of Elections does.
yes,
The State Board of Elections does.
State Board.
The State
Yes.
Board of Elections, yes. Yes.
Okay.
Mary,
Actually, I had a couple of questions and I do have a comment.
yes.
I'll start with the comment.
Okay.
Okay, you have a great deal of wonderful information that I mean, actually 95% of it is really important to the public. I know that I train poll workers, poll observers. And last year, I trained. Last year, I trained 95 poll observers for the election. I could not get anything across to them without handouts. Okay, and this information is so important that I know some of it is on your website, but in what you shared with us today, especially about, age, I know that that's really important and people are not aware that it's 16.
The pre-registration age?
Yes, they are still thinking it's 18.
Mhm.
Okay, and the other thing is, if you move within the county, people are just assuming that, oh, that's okay. It doesn't have to change anything. So I just wondered if maybe you could reach a lot more people if you had some kind of handout in that area.
I love that idea. I think that we could certainly take the material from this presentation and put that into
Because it was
a
very,
handout
very
that you
good.
could use or other groups could use.
Yeah, it was very good and you covered a lot of really important things. But if there was someone here who had never heard any of that, right now, their head is just buzzing and they're going, oh my gosh, that's a lot of stuff. And my question is, okay. So 5 weeks prior to the election, I'm aware they need to be registered, okay?
Right, because we have two deadlines that we're looking at. We have our
Right.
30-day residency deadline
Yes.
and our 25-day registration deadline.
Right. Now, the 25-day in this upcoming election, I think is like October 13th. or
You're in the
something.
ballpark, I believe.
Yeah,
Yes.
somewhere in that. Okay, that I think is very important
Mhm.
for people to know, because they're not aware that those rules must be met.
Yes.
And the other thing, one other thing that I had a lot of last year, because I talked to my observers after, was people going to the wrong poll. So along with that registration and the fact that they have to have the necessary information to you folks, I think it's real important to make sure that they check where they're going to vote.
Agreed, completely
So-
agreed. This presentation was meant as that kind of deep dive.
Right?
And as we continue, this is one of the reasons we want people to follow us at least on one form of social media that they might use, because we will be giving out those dates. We will be, making sure that that information is dispersed to the general public
Great.
as often as we can before the election. And if folks are unsure about things, I highly recommend they either come in person or online to our September election seminar, because that's the prepare to vote. And we're going to
Right.
talk about those deadlines and make sure people understand how to look up their registration, how to find their polling location, why it's so important. We're also going to talk about that at our election expo next month. So if people are thinking about it
Good.
now, which we want people to be thinking about it
Yes.
early, they can
Mhm.
come in. We're going to have some handouts there, some things to give away that I think will be helpful for people as good reminders to them to check their registration, how to find their polling location, how to request an absentee by mail ballot when those become available, and
Right.
that kind of thing. So,
oth-
yes.
The other thing
Can I,
that,
I just want to add to that before you move on.
yeah,
I think like you work with people who work with voters, you know, you work with people that go out into the community and try to register people. If everyone who talks to a voter leading up to an election can say, hey, have you checked your voter registration record to make sure you're registered and you know where to vote? I think if everybody would check their registration, election day would be the smoothest
yes.
day ever.
Yeah.
But getting people to actually check that registration, I just feel like we're not reaching everyone. So,
Right.
you know, those online, if you work with voters or registering voters, or maybe just post on your personal social media, hey, go check this link, go check your voter registration before every election, because polling places change. We mail a card, but
Right.
how often does that card get tossed in the garbage because it looks like
You're
junk mail?
absolutely right, Sarah, because they're not aware.
Yeah.
And that is why I suggested to our precinct chairs,
Mhm.
one of the reasons I'd like them to have a voter registration event is so that they can remind the voter of these things. And as a participant in my party, a primary to me is important, but you know, very few people in this county know or care what a primary is. Really, truly. And I don't know from your perspective how important it is, but I do know that you have to have manpower and whatever. So I think a little more information on a primary would be great.
Yes, we talked about that a little bit in our last seminar, but I do agree that a lot of people don't understand when they are showing up. They know that they need to go vote.
Maybe this is our January session.
This would be a great, that's a
We're-
great idea.
We're
I
scheduled
actually,
for December. Maybe this is our January session.
Mary, I just made a note to myself that maybe something like an email blast to you and to other heads of organizations that have email lists that they can then send out, hey, voter, vote day is coming up. It's election day is coming up. Have you checked your voter registration?
would
Here's
love
the
it.
link. Have you checked where your precinct is? Here's the link. Have you checked your sample ballot, or do you know what you're going to be voting on? Here's the link. Really simple, so it's not a long
That would be
email, but
great.
something that we could get out
Because I
parties,
can
to
tell
other
them,
organizations that can then disperse it to
Yeah.
their groups.
I
Yeah.
can talk to them in a meeting and they're all happy campers and that's all fine
You
and
need it
good.
written down.
The minute they go to the door, if I give them a piece of paper to take home and read, this is going to be a lot better. So thank you for listening.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yes, Lloyd.
Locations in Brunswick County. Would you like a contact list?
I've been working on compiling lists for
Okay.
that, for realtors, for in the area, so that we can start to reach neighborhoods, new people that are moving in and that type of
I'll
thing.
see if I can get you a contact
Well,
list.
I
of
would
the
love that,
agents.
Lloyd. That would be fantastic. Thank you.
See what happens.
Okay. Ryan, do you want to let me know if we had any questions from our online viewers?
Looks like we've got 2 questions.
Okay, if you could read the first one, please.
All right, so the first question is from Ann Supley. She says, what is the point in pre-registering 16-year-olds?
I'll answer that just because we don't really have a say in that process. That is something that is written into the general statutes that has come and gone over the years. I think the thinking is if you catch them early when they're maybe going to the DMV or at the high school, when they become 18, because most kids aren't thinking about voting at 18, they would then become eligible to vote. But really, it comes down to that's what the General Assembly has said we will do.
Okay, and our next question is from a Richard Helfrich. And he said, do you work with the community college and the high schools to register?
Yes, we do. We do registration drives at the high schools. We're actually working on additional outreach with our high schools and the community college as well. All right, well, I'll just give it one more minute in case somebody wants to type in a question. And again, thank you for joining us in the audience today and everyone online. We so appreciate if you have not registered for our additional election seminars. I encourage you to do so. Those will be deeper dives into those topics that I mentioned. And we hope that everyone will come and visit us on Thursday, May 18th for our first Elections Expo. We're really excited about it and hope that we will see you there. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great evening.